Yo, what's up everybody? It's Manga Mike here. I'm going to try to zip through this one because I've recorded it twice and it's like 30 minutes each time. So let's get started. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking about Burn the Witch. I just watched the anime the other day and I wanted to do like a review and like kind of my first impression of the anime. What I am going to do is I'm going to go through a general overview of the characters, setting, and storyline and my first impression of how successful it was with some slight critiques as well. And what I'm going to do though is I'm going to do just a general overview of all of this, and then I'm going to go into a deeper dive of everything that happened within this story after I rewatch and go through the manga. So yeah, let's first start with the main characters. Oh, sorry, there will be spoilers, so don't watch if you don't want spoilers, okay? So let's go through some of the main characters. So we have Ninny, Noelle, Bruno, Balgo, Billy, and Macy. Those are the only characters I'm going to talk about. There's a couple of more. I just don't think that they're worthy of even bringing up. So, Ninny. Ninny and Noelle are the two protagonists of the story. Ninny is like the more ambitious one. She wants to climb up the social ladder of being a witch, basically. And she wants to become a saber at some point, which I think that sabers are the ones who go after dark dragons in particular. So they're the ones that go out for the harshest of missions. And right now, her and Noelle are kind of in this phase in which they're doing the lighter missions, tending to these dragons and making sure that they're safe, bringing them to reserves and things like that. She's a pretty abrasive character, and out of the two, she's also the senior witch. Noelle is, she's a little bit more flat as a character. She doesn't really show too much emotion. She kind of cares about just money. That's really about it. And both her and Ninny are very highly skilled. She is the junior witch, but she doesn't really care about those kinds of things. So she calls Ninny by her first name, and that's that. So their interactions are pretty fun. And probably the highlight as far as character interactions go within this story. And then the next character I'll talk about is Balgo. So Balgo is a dragonclad, which is just a person that dragons are attached to. And there's some other stuff, but that's pretty much all you need to know. Ninny and Noelle are in charge of watching over him and protecting him so that dragons don't immediately harm him. And to make sure he doesn't have too much contact with particular kinds of dragons and things like that. I think. I might be a little off on that, but the first part I know is correct, so we'll go with that. Overall, his character's kind of whiny and is very much in love with Noelle. Noelle does not care about any of that stuff with him, so there's supposed to be humor there, and I think it fails. We'll get back into that in a minute. And then we have probably the fourth most important character, and I would argue maybe the third most important, and his name is Bruno. So the way that Reverse London, which is kind of like Soul Society, I guess Wingbind is technically the name, but Wingbind is kind of set up the way Soul Society is, where there's captains, except for they're not called captains, they're called directors. So their directors are specific sects, just like the captains were, but they're directions of specific sects of their overarching, like, worldly magic, basically. He's probably my favorite character out of this bunch. He's beautifully designed, he's really brash. This is the other thing, I'm horrible with pronunciation. You know, Too Spooky says that, right? He actually gets a lot of them correct. I do not, so you can make fun of me about that, but he is, he's kind of like a mix between Byakuya and Kenpachi in a way. He's absolutely ruthless, but he's loyal to his cause. So that's something that I really enjoyed this character overall, and yeah. The next character that's kind of, I guess, worthy of talking about is Macy. So she is not, I guess, she's pretty important. She ends up raising a dragon. She's like a watcher. She can see the dragons and stuff like that. So she kind of raises this dragon that ends up being a legendary dragon of, I'm about to butcher this again, but Mirian dragon. So it's just like a dragon of legend. So she kind of raises that dragon, and it ends up being kind of the main blockade at the end for our main cast to kind of topple, right? She also has a connection with Ninny outside of Reverse London. So in regular London, they, I think, were like singers together or something like that. And there's almost like this romantic aspect to their relationship. It reminds me of Soifon and Yoruichi in a lot of ways, except for it's more blatant that she's like romantically attached to Ninny. So yeah, that's kind of the characters in a nutshell. So now I'm going to give you just an overview of like the setting and the story, and then I'm going to actually go into the story itself. Alright, so the setting of the story and kind of like the background is that the Wingbind is kind of this organization that kind of takes care of these dragons. And dragons are these mythological creatures within this world that are kind of supernatural as well. They kind of fly around and wreak havoc, and people can't see them. And the thing that I really like about this is that it makes this kind of creation of dragons, and it's something that we in our own history have seen time and time again, even though there's never been a dragon, and it makes it more real, right? And I really, really enjoy that. So the Wingbind, and in particular witches and wizards and Noelle and Ninny, are in charge of kind of maintaining these dragons in Reverse London. People of regular London aren't able to see, but Reverse Londoners are. So that's kind of like the main premise. So let's go through the actual storyline really fast, and I'll try to be as quick as I can with this. So basically, you get the storyline in which they are in charge, Noelle and Ninny are in charge of watching over Balgo, because Balgo's dragonclad. He ends up attracting a dark dragon. They end up deciding, because of Ninny and her, her desire to want to advance up the ladder that she's in, she decides, like, hey, we're not calling the Sabers, I want to be a Saber, so we're just going to go ahead and take care of this dark dragon ourselves. We don't need nobody else, right? This is how you get promoted. So they end up taking care of the dark dragon. They destroy a whole bunch of stuff in the process, so there's no promotion. And they don't even get paid that much. So it ends up kind of backfiring a little bit. And then what really happens in this, though, is that all of that was kind of a lead up to Bruno, who, like I said, is part of the directors, and kind of calls this meeting. And within this meeting, he says, like, hey man, this hasn't happened in like a century, this is important, we need to take care of this Balgo guy because it's just too much. And nobody else seemingly cared except for one other guy. So much so that one of the directors didn't even show. And so they end up talking with one another and nothing happens. And so Bruno and the dude, his name's like Wolf something, doesn't really matter. He looks like Ewok or whatever the dude's name is from Bleach. U-Haul, there we go. He looks like U-Haul a little bit, except for he's just kind of gray. So they end up talking and they decide, like, hey, yeah, we're gonna take this dude down. Like, we need to come up with this plan. And so they're like, yeah, we need to come up with this plan. So what they decide to do is they decide to go and get Macy, who has that dragon, bring it up, causing the explosion in this particular building, and they're gonna frame Balgo for terroristic act so that they can take him in and get him off the streets and probably execute him so that he can no longer attract these other dragons, because that's really what the issue was, right? Is that a dark dragon attack like the one that they had seen hadn't happened in that century. So there's a brief moment, and I'm not going to go too much into this, but there's a brief moment in which Ninny and Macy kind of interact, and you see Ninny's kind of soft side, because she wants to save Macy. She wants to make sure that she doesn't get imprisoned or executed for having this involvement with the dragon. And then you kind of get this interruption by Bruno because he's trying to take Balgo. So Ninny and Noelle have to now try to sweep up Balgo and keep him safe, because that's their job. And in the process, they end up deciding to take Macy so she doesn't get taken away and end up getting executed for having this contact with the dragon. At least I think that's why they ended up doing it. It's kind of a lot was happening in that moment. And like I said, I only watched it the one time, but so they do that, and they start to sorry, my dog's turning my chair. So they do that, and they start to fly away. They end up having their interaction with Bruno, and they kind of get the better of him in the moment, at least enough to fly away. So they get away, and it's nighttime at this point, and they use this spell to kind of try to mask them, and it doesn't really work. Bruno kind of busts right through it with his mount, which is a mount is just a dragon that they ride. Busts right through it. And then there's, it seems like there's about to be another conflict between Noelle, Ninny, and Bruno. But what ends up happening is the dragon Cinderella, whose name at the time was Ellie, that's what Macy named her, I think it was Ellie or something like that, ends up fighting with Bruno and his dragon. And he finally figures out, like, nah, this isn't a regular dragon, because it can disappear, and that's not, it uses stealth scale is what it's called, and that's not something that is typically done by regular dragons. Only the legendary dragons, I'm not going to try to say that word again, are able to do that. And right on cue with that, dragon flies up into the moonlight and it molts, and that is Cinderella's MO, right? It molts in the moonlight and kind of evolves into its actual self. And once it's evolved to its actual self, it basically lays waste to the entire city because it flaps its wings a little bit. And I don't know if it's like the feathers, like the dust from the feathers, I can't remember, but whatever kind of residue comes off the wings, anything that it touches, it blows everything sky high, basically. So it lays waste to this entire city, and now Noelle, Ninny, and Bruno have to work together in order to defeat this dragon. And this is where the story kind of goes downhill for me. Basically what happens is they just provide a distraction from this dragon, and the dragon's kicking their butt, which is fine, but Billy Banks Jr. actually ends up taking the final shot and killing the dragon. So that's the story. Now, my review of the story. So, overall, I think that this is, I'm about to be harsh, and don't get me wrong, I think that this is a fantastic idea. It's a great premise, I just don't think it's executed well for a lot of reasons. One, I didn't go into this too much, but just absolutely super clunky dialogue, and I don't know if that's a product of the manga or a product of the anime, but it's not good. The dialogue sucks for the most part. I mean, at one point, Ninny said, like, I'm in this for the fame, you're in it for the money, let's go, kind of deal. And it's just like, I don't know, man, like, just show us, don't tell us like that, that's horrible. So that, I was just like, oh man. And that was at the very, very beginning. And then there's just like, Balgo, I think his character sucks. Like, there's also this scene where he like pulls out, and it just doesn't really seemingly go anywhere, but he pulls out a sword out of his like, I can't remember what they call them, but the magic that they use comes out of like these horns, and he somehow pulls a sword out of that, and that just doesn't go anywhere. So I'm not really sure what that was about. Another storyline that needed to not be there. But overall, I just think, like, and you could tell by how jumbled I am trying to talk about it, because there's so many things that are happening. What the real issue is that Tite Kubo, I think, is so used to writing really long stories that are great for shonen manga, for, you know, long-standing series, but and serialization, but it's not good for short stories. And that's what you see here. You see somebody desperately trying to put in, like, to make a 50 or 100 plus chapter story fit into 5 chapters. And I've talked about this before on my channel, but when you do that, you fail. Like, there's just no way you can do it. There's just too much material, and you can see that because it feels like when the story feels like it's going one direction, it actually ends up going another, and then another, right? And then another, and it's just like, that's just too much. It could have been done like and executed well, and I think that what would have saved it a little bit for me is if Ninny and Noelle would have done some form of magic in the beginning, or been trying it at the beginning or something like that, and that form of magic would have been relevant later on or something like that, or been shown by Billy Banks Jr. how to do the magic that he used in order to defeat Cinderella, and then they used it in the moment and he had like a proud teacher moment or something like that. But instead you get this situation in which the main protagonists aren't the one that solves the problem. So it's really nobody's story. And that's the biggest problem with this particular like 5-episode anime, is that I don't know whose story this is. And it's not like I'm confused. I'm not like, there's parts of this story, yeah, I probably don't have 100% down because I only watched it once. But I'm not sitting here like, I wasn't sitting here like really feeling confused about like, what did I just watch? And I'm not like a dumb human being for the most part. I'm pretty goofy, but I'm not like really dumb. So like, I'm just sitting there, I'm trying to I'm like, what the heck did I just watch, and why did it end the way that it ended? There's just so much, and it's because of what I just said. So yeah, I think that it was a great premise, and I do look forward to future installments, and I hope that he can take the story that we just got and elongate it into like 50 episodes or 40 episodes or something like that, so we can get a real sense of what's happening. Or where he wants to go, like what direction he wants to go in. But it just felt super rushed, and the pacing was bad. The characters are kind of clunky besides Noelle, Ninny, and Bruno. They don't really fit, a lot of them. You have to have this dragon-clad character, but did it really need to be an actual character? It could have been something else, like an object. I don't know. But yeah, the biggest issue was what I just talked about. I think that would have saved it some points. But yeah, I think overall I would give it a 6 out of 10. So just slightly above average. So I am being like kind of critical about it, but I did still enjoy it, and I love the premise, and I love the world that Tite Kubo created. It's just that he needs to know how to, I guess, scale it down to fit into this story, or the amount of pages and chapters that he had, and he didn't do a great job of that. So, at least in my opinion, he did a decent job, but not a great job. So there, that's my review. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope that you enjoyed just kind of me trying to go off the head and be a little bit more personal with you. I'll probably do more videos like this. For those of you who are wondering, like, why is this video getting posted in the middle of the week and not on Saturday like usual, I'm gonna have to switch when I post stuff, and that's because I actually started Mark Brunet's feedback portion of the school that I'm a part of, the art school for digital artists, whatever he calls it, on QBrush. So I'm going to be spending a lot of my Saturday mornings finishing up stuff to post on there so that I can get good feedback. And I'm going to probably announce pretty soon like what I'm aiming to do and everything like that. So it's going to change my schedule around just a bit. But anyways, I do still hope that you enjoyed this. And I'm Manga Mike. And I'm out.